how to calculate the long-term profitability of BRRR deals. We're going to be covering the different types of income. We're going to get into the impact the market has on your income method, how you're going to be making money now, what a BRRR deal actually is, and how to calculate long-term profits when we're talking about BRRR deals. I believe that over the next 5 to 10 years, there's a greater opportunity to become financially free than there has been in the last 5 to 10 years. And you may even say, Ryan, why in the heck is this? Well, my definition of financial freedom is how many days you can go without having to work. Can you go an hour? Can you go 2 hours? Can you do a day? Can you do 3 days? Can you do a year, 6 months, 5 months? Can you do 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? How long can you go without having to work? And when I say having to work, that doesn't mean you don't choose to work. I know lots of people that don't have to work, but love to do it and find purpose and joy in it. Okay, active income. This is income that you have to do something to get the money. This is where you're saying, hey, I've got to actually do something in order for money to come in. So that could be a job. This could be doing fix and flips. This could be wholesaling. Those things are not going to happen if you are not there. There's nothing wrong with active income. Active income is something you need to take care of your family, pay your bills, those types of things as part of this active income. But you need to make some active income set it aside so it can become passive income. If you're not paying yourself first, setting some of that money aside to get passive income where you don't have to work to get it, you're going to find yourself never being in that financial freedom, which is the ultimate goal for most real estate investors. So the problem is I see most real estate investors really don't invest. They do transactional work. The transactionals, your fix and flips, your wholesales, those types of things, those are transactional work. They pay well. They're fantastic to do. I'm not saying you should not be doing those. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is a portion of those, you need to be taking that money so that you can invest. So going from $30,000 a year to making $75,000 a year doing fix and flips from a job, is that a good thing? Absolutely, that's a good thing. But it's only a good thing depending upon what you do with the money. If you end up spending $75,000 a year instead of maybe upping your budget to $40,000 a year and taking $25,000 a year to then reinvest. Because what I see most of the time is people start having success, they start increasing their standard of living, and sometimes they increase their standard of living even more than what they're making. And so you've got to be careful with standard of living increases as you're making more money, because the result of financial freedom is taking some of that money and putting it towards something passive that's going to pay you whether you get out of bed in the morning or not. So in transactional work, you do something and you get paid. Buy, fix, sell, wholesale, those are all going to be called transactional work. Where we talk about passive income is you do something now and you get paid for many years to come. For example, you buy a rental property, you invest in an apartment complex, and for many years to come, you're actually getting paid forever without you having to do anything. That's what we're calling real, true passive. Okay, market skyrocketing. Nationwide, home values have doubled over a 10-year period, probably even more. In 2022, median was 525,000. In 2,500, that is wrong. 282,000. Oh yes, over the last 10 years. So from Q2 2012 is 282,000, and it's gone up to 525,000, almost doubled in that 10-year period. Now, some places it's more than doubled, other places it may not have doubled, but as a whole, nationwide, we've seen house values virtually double over the last 10 years. Now, why did we see that? It's because we saw interest rates hit all-time lows. So in 2021, we saw interest rates as low as 2.5, lowest interest rates we have seen in decades. Why is this the case? Well, the Federal Reserve, which determines the federal fund rate, this is the rate that the banks actually borrow against the Feds at, also known as like the central bank. Why the federal rate is different than what you pay. So you may say, well, I saw that the Fed rate is at 2% and I'm paying 4%. Why is that? Well, there's a really simple answer for that. Banks are borrowing against the Federal Reserve. They mark it up, so they borrow at 2 and they sell it to you at 4, and the difference is called a spread or a margin, and that's how they actually make money, is by putting that margin or putting that spreads on there. So for example, if you borrow from the feds at 5%, only the banks are able to do this, and you sell to a borrower at 7%, you're making a 2% margin on that spread as those payments are coming in. So we say values went up like crazy over the past few years. The Fed is really involved and concerned about inflation and where inflation is going to be taking us. This idea with inflation is the price of goods and services are getting more expensive. So a gallon of milk that you spent $1 on is now costing you $1.10, and it's the same gallon of milk. It's not like you got some other brand, and it's just because the inflation has had rising prices. How does that inflation? Housing is a great way to hedge against inflation. Most people don't realize if there is inflation, typically house prices actually go up with that. Okay, the costs go up due to inflation. His house values are usually going up as well. So what is going on with the current market we are in today? Well, right now, there are more buyers than sellers. This isn't the case anymore. Buyers aren't able to find affordable homes. There's a lot of buyers out there, but they're not able to afford it. So the housing value is going up 50% over the past few years, and the interest rate's doubling. Part of the reason the Federal Reserve is raising that interest rate is because they don't want inflation. So is there really a lack of buyers in the market right now? Well, I'm gonna say there's not a lack of buyers. What there is there's a lack of homes for those buyers at an affordable price because of the change in the current interest rate. So there is a lack of affordable homes problem that's going on right now, and interest rates are being raised to fight off inflation, which is what's making it harder for someone that wants to purchase a property. So when you deal with super high prices and super high interest rates, something's got to give there, and it's either less properties end up selling, which we're starting to see that. This puts downward pressure on values due to the increased cost of monthly house payments. If it goes from a 3% to a 6%, you have had a significant increase in your payment on a monthly basis. And if you could have afforded a $500,000 house, you may only be able to afford a $300,000 house now. Now, the thing that's really important to realize with this, and why I say there's a lot of income, financial freedom making in the next 5 to 10 years, is the Fed can lower the interest rate as fast as they take them up. We saw this during COVID. They just cranked the interest rate down, and what did that do? It spurred on purchasing, and it spurred on buying, and so you saw a lot of uptick on that. And they do this, okay? This is not something, they do this to incentivize spending and borrowing. This is a lever the Federal Reserve can pull up or down. They can say, let's raise rates, let's lower rates. Let's raise rates, let's lower rates. So as we go into, if there's a poor market or those things, what is the Federal Reserve going to do? Well, they are going to turn down the interest rates because they want to stimulate the economy. So there is a price decline with rates going up. The affordability is getting worse. That's what we're seeing right now. So this is putting it's putting a load on the pressure of rates eventually. And that's where we get to this investment strategy, how to invest in the market we are in right now. And the first thing you've got to realize is what's called dollar cost averaging, okay? Everybody tries to time real estate. You can't time real estate. What you want to do is you want a dollar cost average. So you want to be systematic on your purchases of real estate. You don't want to buy 10 homes today, okay? What you want to do is you want to buy a house a year for 10 years, or maybe 2 houses a year if you're more experienced. But let's say a house a year for 10 years, or a house every other year for 10 years or 20 years. So basically, let's say that you bought the exact same house in the exact same area in the exact same market, okay? And so let's say you pay $350,000 today, and then in 2023 you pay $325 because prices went down, and then 2024 you paid $300 because prices went down. Well, guess what? Your average of those 3 houses is actually $325,000. What you've done is you've dollar cost average. You've said, hey, I bought the properties from $350 to $300, so my average into each property is $325. Okay, so what happens here? You bought one for more and one for less, and it starts to average out. You cannot time the market, but with time, real estate always goes up. So you never know when the bottom is. I remember in 2008, I was scared to buy houses because they went down significantly, and I was like, they could go down even more. You don't really know when that bottom is, and so what you do is when it's a good time to buy, you buy and you systematically buy. So you buy so many houses a year and you spread it out, and that becomes the average, and knowing that over the long term, 50 years from now, are house prices going to be higher than they are today? Absolutely, they will be, because there's almost only so much land, there's only so much great areas, so you're going to see that. So the question then is like, well, Ryan, this was all supposed to be about BRRR. What are we talking about here? Well, let's talk about what BRRR is. BRRR is when you buy, when you renovate, when you rent, and when you refinance the property. That's what a BRRR methodology is. Now, we know interest rates can and will go up. They're doing it right now. If you look at history, you can see that. The idea of a BRRR is you're buying a property with hard money, you're purchasing it and using the money for as much rehab as possible, you're renting the property with a hard money lender's permission, and then you're refinancing it so that you can then have cash flow from that. Now, qualified for long-term finance, you've got to be able to qualify for long-term finance for this to work. You're going to have to get a bank, a credit union. Hard money lenders are not doing the long-term finance. And what I mean by that is a 30-year loan at a fixed interest rate. That's what we're talking about when we say long-term financing. So let's talk a little bit about these BRRRR steps, okay? First thing, you're getting approved with a hard money lender. That is the first step in doing these BRRRR type deals. Next thing is you're getting approved for takeout financing. Who's going to give you that 30-year loan after you get the property fixed up and get the tenant in there and those types of things? And then you've got to go find a really good deal. It's got to be a really good deal for this to work out. You purchase it with hard money, you purchase that property with hard money, you get the work done, and then you refinance that property. You get the work done, you put a tenant in there with the hard money lender's permission, then you refinance the property, pay off the hard money lender. That's basically the cycle here of what you do. The goal with all of this is to get into rental properties with little to no money. How can I get into rental properties with as little money as possible? Then this is the key. Then you wait for interest rates to come back down. At some point, interest rates will come back down. Let's say that you're buying the properties, renovating it, putting a tenant in there, and you're just maybe breaking even. Well, when interest rates come back down, and that might be 5 years, 10 years, I don't know when, but at some point interest rates will come back down. That is when your cash flow doubles or triples and gets really exciting, because what you're going to do is you're going to refinance that 6.5% rate to a 3% rate, and you're going to be putting a lot more money on your pocket. You do that on a 30-year fixed loan, and you end up cash flowing. So over time, also rents actually go up as well. Even in 2018, rents went down like 6% at most in 2018. It should be 2008. Be prepared for this. Plan on 5 to 10% decreases in rents, okay? That's something you can plan on. The other thing that I really recommend is under rent your property. Don't rent the property for what market value is. Rent it a slightly under market value, 5 to 10% under market value. You're going to attract the best tenants. They're going to stay longer. They're going to take better care of the property, and you'll make more money by under renting the property because they'll stay longer, take better care, and you won't have one of the most difficult things, which is tenant turnover. That's a whole topic for another day on managing tenants. If you want to hear more about that, make sure you put in the comments and say, Ryan, I want to hear more about rental management strategies. Now, even if you could just break even on your rent right now, you won't have to put much of your own money into the deal. You can refinance it when rates actually come down, and that's where it actually gets really exciting. This is a long-term investment. This is not a get rich quick. This isn't a fix and flip. This is a long-term investment. So let's talk about this. Let's say you buy a property for $250,000. You put $50,000 to the rehab. A hard money lender is going to give you 70 to 75% of the ARV. Let's say that the home's worth $400,000 after it's fixed up. Then you do a rate and term refinance to pay off the hard money lender. You should own the home with about $100,000 worth of equity. So even if the market continues to go down, you would more than likely not go down $100,000, 25%. And it's probably not going to eat all of your equity before you get to the point where your loan is, your value of the property is worth what your loan is at, okay? So if it does, you break even if it goes down 25% because you found a great deal. But if it doesn't and it only goes down 10%, you got 15% equity. But guess what? You're gonna buy another property next year at that lower amount, and then you're gonna keep doing that every year. So then when you see rates come back down, you'll do the refinance and you will see cash flow go up substantially. So now what I want to talk about is how do I go identify a good BRRR deal? Well, you look at markets for rent of homes. You want to rent for 5 to 10% under, as we talked about. You want to take 5% for rents if rents go down. So it's like, hey, I normally rent for this house for $1,000. I'm going to under rent this property for $950 or $900. I'm also going to take $50 off because there could be some rents that are going to go down, although it doesn't look like it. But I'm going to plan for that in order for me to make sure I don't find myself in a problem situation. Okay, so let's say rents currently are $1,500. You want to under rent the property by 5%, so that's $425. This is what you would rent to get the very, very best tenant. Then I'm going to take another 5% off if there's a rental decline, so $1,350. So what I want to make sure is that $1,350 can cover my payments, my taxes, my principal, my interest, and insurance. If it can cover that, it's a deal I am going to be looking at, with the hopes of interest rates going down at some point, I don't know when, and with the knowledge that values are going to go up over the long term and rents will go up over the long term. It's done it since 1950, I can't remember the last graph, but you can see a straight line up for rents and a straight line up for values. Now, does it go up, down, up, down, up, down? Yes, but the trajectory is heading straight up. So you're going to say, well, okay, Ryan, how do I make money in actually doing this? Well, one way you make money is you've created some equity. So you should be able to sell and make a small profit, but that's not what our goal is with this. So yes, maybe you could sell that property, make a small profit, but that's not what we're trying to do because we're working on financial freedom now. So ways to make money with rental properties. One way is cash flow. So anything under that $1,350 then becomes cash flow and you're making money. Now, right now, I'm not necessarily planning on cash flow because I am going to want to be conservative. If I get cash flow, that's fantastic. But if rents go up or down, or if the rents don't go down, I'm making some cash flow. Also, there's appreciation. This is the property value going up over time. I would plan on 3 to 5 years to see that value going up. But we're planning on holding these properties for 10 to 15 years. Or if you're like me, you're planning on holding onto them for the rest of your life. I hope I go to the grave with the properties that I currently have. That would be a win for me. I don't know, that's a long ways from now and I've never been that old before, so maybe I'll change my mind when I get there, but I don't think so. So amortization, each month the tenant pays part of your loan, and that's one of the things. If that tenant's paying the $1,350 and it only covers your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance, part of that payment is for the principal, which is gonna pay down, so each month you owe less on your property than you did the month before, and you didn't have to pay that, your tenant paid that. So you've got to realize that. Also, you've got your tax benefits of depreciation. There's also what's called accelerated depreciation. For those of you that are in a higher income bracket, accelerated depreciation is amazing to help you offset some of that. And you only have a depreciation recapture when you sell the property, but if you take it to the grave, you're not going to sell the property. You also have business expenses, your car, your phone, those types of things, utilities, mortgage, interest, travel for conferences and those things that you may need to go to, legal and professional advice. Those are things that are going to be some tax benefits that you're able to write off now, which is going to lower your tax responsibility by writing those things off. And that is going to help you pay less in your overall taxes legally, ethically, the way that it should be done. Now, all of this is not cash in your pocket today. It's growing your long-term wealth, which is why I started out saying there's going to be opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years to really grow financial freedom, and this is how it's done. So, for example, rents went from 7% to 3.5%. So a $300,000 loan is now paid down to $275,000. Okay, so $275,000. You lower your monthly payment by $700 by doing that. So your interest rate was 7%, and now you refinance it at 3.5%. A few years down the road. You only owe $275,000 on it, and your monthly payment went down $700 a month. So that's how you make these deals happen, and you look for the long term. Now, how do you play this game? First off, you negotiate hard. You realize that it's more of a buyer's market than it is a seller's market. You realize that you need to be picky. You realize you only need to buy one good deal. Don't try and go buy 100 deals. Like, in the next 12 months, I want to buy one great deal, and I'm going to look for that one great deal. I also want to add value to that property. So I'm going to find that great deal, and I'm going to make that property better by doing what's called value adding. I want to add value to the property. That may be finishing a basement. That may be recarpet, repaint. That may be a new kitchen. That may be updating it. Whatever's going to add value to that property. We want to improve the equity in the home, which then lowers our risk of that investment we have into the property. Then we want to get a great tenant at a good price, okay? Good tenant, great price for the long term. I like 5 years plus. I tell everybody I'm a long-term landlord. If you're only interested in being here a year or two, I don't want you. I'm looking for 5 years plus, because tenant turnover is the most expensive thing. So wait, rents, then you just have to wait, okay? Because rents do go down, values do go up. Now, the other strategy you can do is you could sell one of your properties and pay off two of your other properties, and then have two properties that you own actually free and clear. Now, there are some risks with this. There's some risk of repairs. You should not need capital repairs, since you've done all those fix-ups when you just did the property. So it should be able to last you a few years, but there may be some repairs. You might have to fix the leaky toilet or those things, but the big stuff, the systems, the HVAC, those things should stay in good condition because you've already repaired most of those. You have some risk of vacancy, but I think we've already calculated for this. In 2008, we saw rents go down a little and then go back up. I don't think you're going to see vacancies that are going to be going up. And in addition to that, you're going to be seeing with the vacancy, we've already taken into account a 5% for that vacancy as well. The other thing you've got some risk on is management. You have to know how to manage these properties. If you don't know how to manage these properties, this is not going to work out very well for you. And management is something that can be learned. Now, this is an absolute amazing strategy, which is in today's market, which is something you should be taking advantage of to make this long-term wealth generation and do true investing. So let's recap this. What have you learned? BRRRRs are passive income projects. The market has impacts on the profitability of BRRRR deals. Use the dollar cost average to determine long-term profitability. You need to qualify for long-term financing in order to do the BRRRR deals. How do you determine if a BRRRR deal is a good one or not based upon how much you can rent for? Cash flow, appreciation, amortization, and tax benefits are all ways to make money with real estate. Repairs, vacancies, and management are all risks of rental properties, and those are things that we try our very best to mitigate against.